Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we take time to take live questions from the audience. However, we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered properly in a video, so we gather up those questions and we address them here on companion videos. And this companion video is to the John Campea Show from Monday, July the 22nd, which was just earlier today. So we've got a bunch of questions we need to get caught up on for those. So let's not waste any time and dive right into it. And the first question we need to get caught up on today comes to us from Fine Wen, who writes, how would you define the term sequel-itis? I don't know, it's a made-up word. I guess it would just be the state of getting tired or bored of sequels. Maybe, I guess, but to me it sounds like a made-up word, so there you go. Blue Rock writes, did I miss something? When did Marvel Fandom fall in love with Natalie Portman as Jane Foster? Taika Waititi has a big job ahead of him. Hashtag foot of Feige. Yeah, I don't know, it's like everybody, it seems like most people I've talked to understand that the Jane character was probably one of the weaker characters, not only in the Thor movies, but maybe in the MCU. That's not Natalie Portman's fault. They just didn't write the character well. And then all of a sudden, when they announced that she's going to be like the new Thor, everybody goes crazy. Yeah, this is gorgeous. This is fabulous. Which kind of reinforces my notion that, like all other fandoms, Harry Potter, DCEU, Star Wars, whatever, anything they say they're doing, everybody just goes, yay, it's the best thing ever. Behold the foot of Feige, which we talked about the other day. But hey, you know what? And as much as a lot of people don't find the Jane character very strong, there are people who do. It's all subjective. And there are people who really like the Jane character in Thor 1. And there are people who really like the character in Thor 2. But the one thing that we have to look forward to, and that I am taking some solace in, is that Taika Waititi is writing this. And if he's got an idea for this, maybe it'll work. So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Mr. Hero 17 writes, thoughts on Brown and Routh returning as Superman? I've addressed this a few times. I mean, it's hard to get too excited about it when you know it's just a temporary Elseworlds kind of thing. And I don't know if he's going to be appearing in 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes. I'm not saying it's not worth getting excited about, because I very much like Brandon Routh as Superman. I do. But until I know more, and I don't want to get too excited about it if it's just going to be something tiny and small. And I'm not saying it is going to be tiny and small. I don't know. I'm just going to wait till I find out more. Sin Vendetta writes, thoughts on the movie Seven, my favorite movie. I like Seven. What's in the box? I like Seven. It's a really solid, good movie. Not one of my personal all-time favorites, but definitely a classic and certainly a really, really good one. Murray Reich writes, that Mr. Rogers trailer made me feel like there's hope in this world. So good. Tom Hanks as him. Sign me up. And I agree. Like, seriously, I watched this trailer earlier today for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers. And while I didn't cry, I got emotional watching it. I got emotional watching. Rob then got here for the show before we started, and like, have you seen the new trailer? He's like, no, played it, and he started getting a little choked up. I mean, it's beautifully, I cannot wait. Now look, I facetiously wrote on my social media, just give all the Oscars to this movie now. I mean, for all we know, the movie's going to suck. The trailer's great, the source material's great, the actor's great. I feel pretty good that it's going to be a great movie, but we don't know. Maybe it'll suck, and we'll have to wait and find out. Okay, next up, Michael Evans Sotelo writes, they mention multiverse in Doctor Strange, but describe them as dimensions like dark dimensions and mirror dimensions, not like alternate Earths. True, but the MCU as a whole has kind of been playing around with that. And plays around with that in a fake sort of way in Spider-Man Far From Home, but anyway, they've played around with it different ways. So I'm not going to get too invested in the way one movie describes something, because we've seen different things come and go and different concepts come and go. So I'm not going to say just because they talked about it one way in the original Doctor Strange movie, that's necessarily the way they're going to treat it in the new one. So I mean, look, I'm not excited about any alternate realities, whatever, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to see the movie, and we'll judge it then at that time. Ewan Fitzhugh writes, can you just let me believe that Charlie Cox is in the MCU? By all means, go ahead and believe it. And, you know, again, the Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, all these Netflix characters technically were in the MCU. They drop some vague references. All I've ever said is, while they are technically in the MCU, they've never really been in the MCU in any real practical way. Like, even now, they just cast Cottonmouth to play another character. They just got Mahershala Ali, who was already Cottonmouth. Like, if Marvel really wanted to put an explanation point on the fact that we are really distancing ourselves from what was the Netflix MCU, then casting a guy as a lead in Blade, who was already a villain, playing a completely different character in one of the shows, if that's not Marvel screaming, we're separating ourselves from that Netflix stuff, then, I mean, it's as clear of a message you can get. But Ewan, technically, they were in the MCU. So hold on to that. Ewan also follows up and writes, so John, I was thinking, what if, just kidding, well played. Dropkick Aggie writes, shouldn't they have saved the Jane as Thor reveal for the movie? Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now everyone has 2 years to preemptively worry / decide they hate it. But she's like the main character of the movie. You can't hide that. It's like doing a Men in Black. Go back in time a little bit. Doing Men in Black and not telling people Will Smith is in it. How do you promote your movie not showing or revealing who your main characters are? You can't do that. So no, they should not, and there's no way they could have waited to reveal this until the movie. There's just no way they could have done. I mean, I understand the principle you're going for, Dropkick. I totally do. But that's just not an applicable thing. This isn't some minor plot twist that you can tuck away in a movie that you can save. This is the main character. If not the number one main character, then maybe the number two main character in the movie. You can't hide that. So no, it's not something they could have possibly hidden until the movie came out. Patrick Conway writes, maybe Scarlet Witch is the villain in Doctor Strange 2. I'll tell you what, Patrick, there are other people mentioning that, because you think about it, at the end of Endgame, she was starting to look a little dark. And when she was fighting Thanos, I don't even know who you are. You will. And the anger and the rage, she's given into the dark side a little bit. You took everything from me. And then very demonically, you will. I mean, that was one of the most badass lines in that movie. And then even with her conversation with Hawkeye near the end, a little dark. And so remember, the WandaVision show comes first. And then and that leads, Kevin Feige says, directly into Doctor Strange. What if at the end of WandaVision, she goes to the dark side? And then Wanda Maximoff actually becomes the villain. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I'm not even saying I believe that. But it is a possibility. You're not the first one to bring it up, Patrick. It's a good thought. Jonathan Spearoff writes, how mad would people be if Avatar got re-released before Avatar 2? It will be. Comes out and became number one at the box office again. It will. Not going to lie, I'd be curious. Well, get ready. I mean, might as well prepare for it now, because that's what's going to happen. I mean, nobody at Disney's told me that, but come on. Disney, it's going to be like the 10-year anniversary or something for Avatar. Disney is getting ready to, they're gearing up for Avatar 2. Disney, for the sake of their marketing, and do not underestimate how important this stuff is to these studios. Because Disney, when they're marketing Avatar 2, they want to be able to say, come back for the sequel to the number one box office movie of all time. If for no other reason, and you better believe that's a good enough reason for Disney to do it. If for no other reason, that's why you can be damn sure they're going to do that. Again, I'm saying damn sure, but nobody from Disney has said that. I just think it makes common sense. Disney will re-release Avatar, and it will become the number one movie of all time again. And then we're going to have this whole argument again, but it's going to happen, man. I'm telling you. Again, nobody officially is saying that. This is me as my fan speculation, but I really believe that's what they're going to do. It just makes total sense. I can't possibly imagine they won't do that. I think they're totally going to do that. Gavin Downward writes, I think a lot of people's problems with The Lion King in 2019 stems from the original. People should view it on its own individual merit, not compared to the original, even though that's hard to do. I mean, yes, look, Gavin, I've always said, you've got to judge a movie on its own merits. I don't care what book it's based on. I don't care if it's a reboot. I don't care if it's a sequel. I don't care, whatever. Judge a movie on its own merits. But everybody is allowed to like or dislike a movie for whatever reasons that they like or dislike it. You know, I've often said this. You don't choose if you like a movie or not. I mean, you can lie and say you like a movie or lie and say you don't. But it's much like food and our taste buds. You put some food in your mouth and your senses tell you if you like it. Now, one person may eat a spicy chicken wing and think, oh my God, this is delicious. I can eat a spicy chicken wing and think, oh my God, this is hell. You know, your body tells you if you like it. You don't choose it. It's just how you respond to it. And I think the same is true of movies. And people watch a movie, and for whatever, everybody's allowed to have whatever reason they want for as to why they responded positively to a movie or negatively. Now, I love Lion King. I do. And I think every movie should be judged on its own merits, not in comparison to its source material. But that being said, everybody has a right to dislike or love, but also dislike Lion King for whatever reason they want. Because that's the nature of movies, man. And that's the nature of subjective art. We see art, we respond to it, and that's what it is. And it doesn't matter what the reasons are. So I got to cut people some slack on that. If people are not liking Lion King, man, then they're not liking Lion King. It's just kind of that simple, Gavin. All right, anyway, but good thought. All right, Gavin also follows up with, also, any chance Once Upon a Time in Hollywood could get a Best Picture recognition? I can already tell it's going to be my favorite of the year. Be very careful about that, Gavin. You haven't seen the movie. For all you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a complete bag of shit. I mean, for all we know. Same thing with Once Upon a Time in My Neighborhood. That's crossing lines. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Like, it looks great, but it could be horrible. I have no idea. Any chance Once Upon a Time could get a Best Picture recognition? We haven't seen it yet. It's impossible to say. I mean, Stuber could get Best Picture recognition, right? We haven't seen it. So any film that comes out has a possibility at Best Picture recognition. But until we see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we can't say anything more beyond that. It's impossible to say. I've heard some critics like it. I've heard a bunch of critics like it, but I've also heard from a few critics that this isn't so hot. I mean, but I haven't seen it yet. You haven't seen it yet, so it's impossible to say. So we're going to have to wait and see. It's got as good of a chance as any, but no better of a chance than any other film either at this point. I'm upset, writes, I'm in minority, but I'm cool with Sony doing Venomverse. You know what? You're not in that much of a minority. You may not even be in the minority at all. I mean, yeah, there was a time when everybody was, Venom will never work without Spider-Man. Then again, there were also people going, Venom will never make $800 million. Made $800 million. But there were people screaming, Venom will never work without Spider-Man. And what happened? It worked without Spider-Man, and it made a huge amount of money, over $800 million. And a lot of people liked it. And I don't think you're as much in the minority as you might think. I'm upset. I think a lot of people are cool with the Venomverse right now. At least they're a lot more open to it now after Venom than they were before. So we'll see what happens. Jabin Carter writes, what's the relationship like between the major trades and the studios? Contentious, or is there cooperation and understanding? I think it's professional understanding. You know, they understand that each have a job to do. Now, the studios will react when they feel like maybe one of the trades is being unprofessional and unfair. But for the most part, the major trades, you're talking about Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, like they have a certain standard of how they perform and how they do their jobs. And the studios understand they have their jobs to do. And if that means reporting bad news, it's reporting bad news. If it means giving bad reviews, it means giving bad reviews. But it also means they give very positive reviews and very good news and all that kind of stuff too. And, you know, the trades understand the studios have a business to run and they're doing what they're going to do, and the trades do what they do. So I wouldn't say it's cooperative, but I also don't think it's contentious. There are things they'll cooperate on. There are things that are going to be contentious. But overall, I think it's just professional understanding. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it. All right. Eternitine Forever writes, Jane Thor, her own hammer, 60% over under. I'm going to go under. It seemed to me, but it could be a misdirect, that they were saying that she's getting Mjolnir. Just that simple. She's getting Mjolnir. So I'm going to say under 60% that she gets. She might, it's possible, but I'm just going to take under 60% on that. Rogue Mammoth writes, does the CW have a big enough CGI budget to alter Brandon Routh's budge? So for those of you who don't know what Rogue Mammoth's talking about, back in the day when Brandon Routh was playing Superman, true story, some of the execs at Warner Brothers were watching the dailies and they thought the size of the bulge in his pants was too big and distracting, and they digitally reduced the size of his bulge. If I'm Brandon Routh, that's a badge of honor I wear with me for the rest of my life. But yes, it's his bulge had to be digitally reduced. So here's hoping that CW will have the budget to do such a thing. Don't know what to put writes, well, let's face it, John, Cruise is inevitable. He is. I mean, I think that was the biggest pop of Comic-Con was him coming out on the stage. Now, I don't think the Top Gun 2 trailer was all that great, but it's great that they showed it. And it created a huge pop, and it kind of stole the show. Brian Learns Stuff writes, one of two. Crawl spoilers, skip if not allowed yet. It's not allowed, but we'll see where you're going. Okay, out of water alligators. There's really not much to spoil in Crawl. I mean, the trailer kind of gives it away. It's a lot of fun. Out of water alligators look cringe-worthy a little bit, but it was a low budget thing. I thought it was fun. Walking around with massive leg injuries like no prob. Seeing underwater with all that sediment and chemicals. And did these alligators escape a secret lab where their brains are experimented on for increased IQ? Gators don't hunt for sport. They eat their meals. They don't just kill and leave the body. Sorry, just too much in this movie. That took me out of the experience. Had to share. Yeah, but dude, I mean, come on. It's a movie called Crawl. Do you think anything in John Wick is remotely realistic? I mean, look, I'm not denying, or, you know, what you're saying. I'm not denying that they probably take liberty with reality a little bit in that movie. For sure. I don't know much about alligators, but even I knew they were probably taking a lot of liberties with what actual alligators do. But this is a movie, this is a low-budget horror movie called Crawl. You give it a little bit of leeway. Much like when you go into a John Wick movie, like, I'm sorry. John Wick sustained massive injuries here, and here. He's not operating. He would not physically be able to go into combat like this. It's just not possible. Human bodies don't heal like that. You can't do this when you've got a bullet in this arm. You can't blah, blah. It's completely unrealistic. But it's a schlocky action movie called John Wick where he kills a lot of people. We let that go. Now, look, like I said before, if Crawl did not work for you, then it did not work for you for whatever reason. But for me, I'm reading your reasoning. I'm going, yeah, that what you're saying is true, but that in no way impeded my enjoyment of it because it's a schlocky little horror movie called Crawl. And on that level, I thought it was fantastic fun. Absolutely fantastic fun. But hey, if it didn't work for you, my friend, it didn't work for you, and that's totally cool. All right, Biden Snipe writes, can we have George Clooney as Dracula in Blade? Probably not. I'm going to guess no. Let's see. Brian Learns Stuff writes. Oh, that was Brian Learns Stuff. I don't know what to put writes. What would your guess be? Is the voiceover in the Joker trailer done for the trailer or more likely a conversation with his psychiatrist or friend? I'm going to go with therapist. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It's just a trailer. But for this, don't know what to put. My assumption, at least, has been it sounds like a conversation he's having with a therapist or a counselor of some sort in any way, shape, or form. So I'm thinking maybe a counselor or therapist. That's what I'm going to lean with for now. James Boner writes, wiping tears from eyes after a beautiful day in the neighborhood trailer. I'm telling you what, man, I got choked up watching that damn thing. I got pure, straight up choked up watching that. And Rob put it best this morning when he said, that thing had me almost in tears watching a 2-minute thing. What's it going to do with me for 2 hours? And that's, I think, a question a lot of people are going to be asking themselves, James. All right, Eric Huffman writes, will MCU continue on as if Inhumans don't exist? I think so. I think Inhumans was a horribly botched, failed experiment. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and their own standalone show, it was a horrible, botched experiment. And I just think they're going to go on in the MCU and never mention them again. I really do. I mean, they might. I'm not saying they absolutely won't, but I've got a feeling we're never going to hear them mentioned again. But that's just me. Dim Sum 05 writes, biggest pet peeves. When fans claim creators' work as lazy or accusing them of not caring because it wasn't what they wanted, the fans want this. Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves is very closely assimilated with that or associated with that, Dim Sum, is that when somebody doesn't like something, they say, the fans want, no, you want. Well, a bunch of people, okay, maybe a bunch of people want. But I've had this type of thing happen several times where, somebody will say to me, the fans want this. I'm like, well, I'm a fan and I don't want that. Do I not count? Or are you only counting you and your friends? I just hate it when everybody claims to speak for the fans. The fans want, no, you want. And you're not alone. There are others. But I am a fan too, and you do not speak for me. Because I think differently than you do. Or sometimes I agree, but we do not speak for everybody. The fans want this. No, you want it. But as soon as somebody starts this conversation with the fans want, it's like, okay. I'm basically going to tune you out at this point, because if you don't get that you don't represent everybody, then I don't know that I should pay much attention to what you're going to say next. You know what I'm saying? And let's face it, it's one of those dumb things that movie fans do, myself and you included, that we all do sometimes. It comes up. I'm sure I've done it. I'm sure you do it. But hopefully we start to catch ourselves when we're doing these dumb things and we stop ourselves from doing it. We're all guilty of it. We just got to kind of curb it a little bit. So that's definitely a big pet peeve for me too, man. Harry Mudd writes, I saw the first picture of Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. Incredible likeness. I don't actually think it's that good of a likeness, but they definitely dressed him up as Fred Rogers. To me, it doesn't matter. Most people are often surprised to hear when I say, like, in a biopic or in a comic book movie, it doesn't matter to me if they look dead on like that person or that character. That's not the important thing. It's just not the important thing. Whether that performer gives a great performance, that's the important thing. And if they give a great performance, the fact that they don't look just like the person we're thinking about, that'll fade away very quickly. But if the person doesn't give a great performance, it don't matter how much they look like them, it's irrelevant. And I've always been at odds with a lot of other film fans about that. A lot of other film fans really believe it's important to look just like them, whether it's a comic book character, a rebooted character from TV show, or a real life character. And I think, yeah, put in some effort to do what you can to make them look similar. But really, at the end of the day, you don't take the lesser actor because they look more like that person. That to me is ridiculous logic, but that's just me at any rate. Okay, Alan Gonzalez writes, but you're not wrong, Harry. I mean, they did make him look similar. I just don't think he looks a lot like him. That's just my thing. Alan Gonzalez writes, Jane as Thor could be part of Thor Corps. I mean, that's a possibility. But again, Alan, that's not what they said. And again, maybe they're misdirecting and they're not giving all the information. But for now, I just got to go with what they said. And that's not what they said. But we'll see. We'll see. Adam K. writes, Crawl was fun. Why didn't it screen for the critics? Because they didn't believe in it. The studio didn't believe in it. If they believed in it, they would have screened it for critics weeks in advance, gotten some positive word of mouth going about it, and they could have done pretty well. But instead they go, we don't think we've got a good film on our hands. We don't think we got a good one. We don't think this is one the critics are going to like. And guess what? Critics liked it. Critics liked it. Actually, let me... Crawl on Rotten Tomatoes. What's it at right now? It's got an 83% it's got an 83% critic rating. So even if you don't, this is why I always say to studios, even if you don't believe in your project, act like you believe in it. Because if you don't believe in your project, why should I as a film fan? If you have no confidence and you're not going to show confidence in your movie, why should I show confidence in your movie by buying a ticket and going to the theater and spending my time at the theater watching your movie? If you're not going to show... So even if you don't believe in your movie, studios, act like you believe in your movie. And you know what? That would have worked out great for Crawl. They clearly didn't believe in their movie. They didn't think the critics are going to like their movie. So they hid it. But the critics do like their movie. So this is another example of, even if you don't think the critics are going to like it, and even if you don't believe in it, act like you believe in it, show confidence, and show it to the critics, and then let the, let the dice roll. Let the chips fall where they may. And it would have worked out great for Krull in this situation anyway. So serves him right. You know, serves them right for not showing confidence in their movie because it's a fun movie. I really like Krull. I got a big kick out of that movie. Anyway, James Hirschfeld writes, what did you think of the Star Trek Picard trailer? Loved it. I've mentioned that a couple of times. Absolutely adore the trailer. I thought it was great fun. I mean, I really liked the first teaser, but this thing just took it to a new level. I'm totally excited for this show. I cannot wait for it to come on. All right. Kaiju Diesel writes, my wife and I love the show. You all are awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kaiju Diesel. It's always nice when somebody just wants to write in and say something nice. So thank you, sir. And thank you to your wife as well. Adam K writes, better trilogy, How to Train Your Dragon or John Wick? People aren't going to like this. I love the John Wick trilogy. Everybody knows I love the John Wick trilogy. Number 2 isn't the strongest, but it's good. But How to Train Your Dragon. I think overall, How to Train Your Dragon is a better trilogy than the John Wick trilogy. Now, if you want to get specific and say, which trilogy has the best action? Well, then obviously John Wick. But which has the better story? Which has the better, more heart? Which has, like, overall, I think the better trilogy is How to Train Your Dragon. But I love me the John Wick trilogy. You guys all know this. Ryan Lohner writes, what is that? Is that new Warrior show with Squirrel Girl still happening? I feel like I lost track of that story. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, there was supposed to be this Marvel show called New Warriors, of which Squirrel Girl was one of them. And this goes all the way back to like 2016. They started to develop it. I think they shot a pilot in 2017. According to reports, you know, Marvel executives loved it, and it was supposed to play on Freeform. But then Freeform apparently didn't want it. So then in 2018, they were still shopping it around trying to find a network. As far as I know, they never found a home for it. So I don't know if it's dead. I don't know if they might bite the bullet and put it on Disney Plus, but I haven't heard anything about it since 2018. So not since last year. And they shot this thing in 2007. They shot this thing 2 years ago, this pilot. So I really don't know what the status of it is right now. I think its best hope right now is maybe they drop it on Disney Plus, but I'm not convinced about that at this point. We'll see what happens. All right. A Plus Opinions writes, hey, John, with Feige giving hints at a different direction and fresh take on the X-Men, my theory is we could get a Stan Lee / Jack Kirby inspired original X-Men version in the MCU. Thoughts? Well, I mean, that could mean a million, in all honesty, AP, that could mean a million different things. What do you mean by an original version? Do you mean the original lineup? Do you mean the original tone? Do you mean set in that time era? I mean, I don't know what you mean when you say, we'll get a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby inspired original X-Men version. Well, everything the X-Men do is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby inspired to some degree, right? So you could literally take any concept about the X-Men and say, this is a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby inspired original X-Men version of the MCU. So I need to know a little bit more specifically about what you're talking about. Because I'm not really sure what it is you mean, because it could mean anything. So I want to engage your question, A+. I do. I just don't know what you mean by that. Anyway, Glenn Miner writes, one of two. Thor 3 theory. Jane is actually Jane from Endgame timeline that we saw. She travels to main MCU universe because of multiverse stuff in Doctor Strange 2. Explains how she can get Mjolnir and have Thor's power. Remember Cap took Mjolnir back at the end of Endgame. I'll be honest with you, Glenn. Bravo for the imagination, my friend. Bravo for the imagination. But I'll be honest with you. I think that's a big stretch. First of all, just because the hammer is in the timeline, the hammer has always been in Jane's timeline. That doesn't mean she went out and got it. So remember, Cap took it back. Yeah, but it's always been there. She had always been in a universe where Mjolnir existed. Just because she's there doesn't mean she gets her hands on it. Keep that in mind. Plus, I think that's just too many reaches. And I think the audience is going to go, check, please. I think the audience will just check out if you go that convoluted, to be honest with you. So anything is possible. We have learned that anything is possible in the MCU, and that includes your theory here. Possible. But I would put $5 against it. I don't think that's what we're going to see, man. But bravo for, like, really, you clearly put a lot of thought in that. So bravo for thinking it through. And anything is possible, but I'm going to guess that's not what they're going to do, nor would I advise them to do it. All right. Blue Rock writes, John and Rob, you are the new Siskel and Ebert. Well, not quite, but thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your time and breadth of knowledge. Keep up the great work. Chris, you're a vivacious and perfect addition to the team. Please stay. Oh, I'll make sure I pass it on to Chris for you. She will be on the show on Wednesday again. Of course, tomorrow we got Aaron Cummings is going to be on the show, but I will absolutely pass it on. Thank you for the compliment, Blue Rock, and I'm sure she'll enjoy hearing that. All right. Lord Alucard writes, Avatar release with part 2 will make it number 1 again. No. If they re-release it on its own, it will. I don't think if they re-release it as a double header, I don't know then if that counts towards its box office. I'm not saying it does or doesn't. I'm saying I don't know that it does. But they will re-release it on its own. And when it does, that will make it number 1 again. Disney will re-release Avatar because they want that for their marketing push. I totally believe that. And again, Disney hasn't said that. Maybe they won't. But I firmly believe that they will to make it number 1 again so they can use that as a part of their big marketing push for Avatar 2. Because remember, Avatar is now a Disney property. It's Disney's. And Disney don't care which one of their films is the number 1 film of all time. All they care about is which film being number 1 will help us market our next upcoming films to make more money? Avatar? Let's re-release Avatar. They'll use the excuse. Look, if they do a re-release of Endgame when really was nothing but a couple of stupid little things thrown in post-credits, then bet your ass they will do a re-release of Avatar to make it number 1 at the box office again so they can use that as a marketing push for Avatar 2. I totally believe that. Dirk Walker writes, my theory is Scarlet Witch will be the antagonist in the Doctor Strange. That's come up already in this episode. I think WandaVision will show her turn to the... Did I not just say that? Dirk, are you reading my mind? Did I not just say that exact same thing? You're reading my mind. Great minds, buddy. Yes, I think that's a possibility. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm not even saying that's what's going to happen. But that is definitely a theory that's out there, and it's a theory that fits. Because Wanda's starting to look like she's going a little darkish. And maybe they follow through with that, maybe they don't. A lot of supervillain stories start with loss. A lot of great supervillain stories start with them losing something. And maybe, the loss of Vision twice, maybe compounding with her still dealing with the loss of her brother, her still dealing with the loss of the Avengers. The way she looked at Thanos so angry and said, "You took everything from me." That's some weight to it. That had some weight to it. So it's definitely a possibility, Dirk. We'll keep our eyes open on that, though. A Vault of the Future writes, over under 50%, Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans return in What If. I'll take the over on that. Again, I don't see why not. I mean, literally, all they would have to do is take 2 hours out of their day, show up at a sound recording booth in Burbank somewhere, go in, put on some headphones, read a couple of pages of dialogue for the animators to have, and then leave and get paid. So the only reason I would say that maybe it doesn't happen is if they ask for a stupid amount of money for doing no work, which they might do. But other than that, I have no idea why they wouldn't do it. It's not like they can't fit one single 4-hour recording session into their day sometime. So I'm going to take, but it's not a guarantee either, but I'm going to take over 50% on it. Paul Britton writes, only 4th new number 1 film in my 35-year life. Just saying, exactly. That's the point I was making a little bit earlier. We've got to appreciate, look, as much as I'm saying, look, Disney's just going to re-release Avatar and it's going to take back the number 1 spot. Yes, but that does not take anything away from the fact that you will never be able to take away from Avengers Endgame that it became the number 1 film of all time. Regardless for how long it holds that spot, it became the number 1 film of all time. And like you just said, Paul, a brand new number 1 all-time film has only happened 4 times in your 35-year life. Opening weekend box office records come and go fairly quickly comparatively. But the number 1 all-time film, that's a remarkable accomplishment. It's remarkable because of how rarely it ever happens. And absolutely great point, Paul. I love the way you illustrated that, because that's a perfect way to illustrate that. Okay. Raymond Lopez writes, Chris, who is not here. By the way, it's a KRIS. Your thoughts on One Piece anime? I don't know what that is, so I can't answer it for her. And unfortunately, she's not here right now, Raymond. Sorry about that, brother. Okay. Next. Brandon Blake writes, dang, that Mr. Rogers trailer got me. I'm telling you, man, it got me too, brother. It completely got me too. Suthius writes, hey guys, I gotta say I'm a simple guy. The littlest things get me excited. Sure, I knew and you knew. We all knew. But the panel still excites me, and to me it's great, and no one's foot is great. Feige's foot is great, my friend. You know, one of my criticisms, and it's almost not even fair to call it a criticism. One of my observations about the Marvel panel, which I thought was fine, it's a fine panel. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not dissing on the panel. I just don't think, compared to other things that Marvel has done with these sorts of announcements, that it was all that mind-blowing. I was a little underwhelmed by it. Granted, I'm a little spoiled by how big and grand their announcements have been before. Yes, I admit that. But, you know, it's just that everything they talked about, we already knew. It's as if J.J. Abrams had a big panel tomorrow at some convention and then talked about, guys, we got a movie coming out in December, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, but we already knew that. We knew that. And guys, returning is Daisy Ridley. But okay, that's great, and I'm excited for that, but we already knew that. And guys, everybody's favorite little ball droid, BB-8 is back, ladies and gentlemen. Look, BB-8. Oh my God, BB-8 is so great. Yeah, okay, yeah, but we knew that. We knew that. And I'm excited about it, but we knew that. I'm excited. We're getting a new MCU movie in Black Widow. I'm excited we're getting a Doctor Strange 2. I'm excited for the Loki series. I'm excited for the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. I'm excited for a new Thor. I'm excited for all this crap. But I knew about it all already. You gave me a few details I didn't know before, and some of those details were really cool. Some of them weren't so cool, but some of them were pretty damn cool. You did let me know that Mahershala Ali's playing Blade. That we did not know, and that's why that was my favorite thing in that panel. But we knew all this stuff already. And some of the stuff they announced I wasn't so happy with, like the Jane being the new Thor, things like that. So overall, solid panel. Solid panel. Talking about stuff that I'm already excited about, but as a panel, just judging the panel on its own merits, it's like 90% of it was just stuff we already knew. So I don't know. I can't get all that excited about it. That doesn't mean I'm not excited about the MCU. That doesn't mean I'm not excited about the movies and the Disney Plus stuff coming. But if I'm being honest, as a panel, it was good, but it's not all that great. But it's an MCU thing. And anything the MCU does, the MCU fans are going to go, this is the greatest thing ever. Just like Star Wars fans. When they announce new things for Star Wars, this is the best thing ever. Just like Harry Potter fans. You announce any stupid thing about Harry Potter fans are, Patronum, or whatever the words it is they say. Just like the DCU fans. I mean, that's what we do, right? That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It was 90% of stuff we already knew. So I don't see how that makes it like the greatest panel ever. We knew all this stuff, but anyway, that's just me. That's just me. And I'm not trying to douse any, downer buckets of water on people who are excited about it. If you're excited about it, that's awesome. But I just get a lot of people, predictably, I knew it was going to happen. The moment I watched the panel, I thought, I'm a little underwhelmed by it. I mean, it was cool, it was solid, but I was kind of hoping for more fireworks, but that's fine. As soon as I knew that I wasn't jumping up and down about the panel, I remember I turned to Ann and I said, I'm going to take heat for this. Because in the world of the MCU, if you don't think every bit of news that comes out about the MCU and everything the MCU does is the greatest thing ever, then you're going to get people that turn on you and you're going to get people attacking you because people don't want to hear that. They want to hear about how it's the greatest thing ever. And I said, I know I'm going to get it, but I got to be honest, because they even asked me, well, then why write that? It's like, because I got to be honest with my audience. I got to be honest. Even if that means they're going to give me heat, I got to be honest with them. So I'm excited about the MCU. I love the MCU, but I will admit that panel didn't turn my crank, you know? I'm not walking on with a ridiculous sized Italian heart on like I normally would for some bigger MCU thing. But it's just, again, but I'm not trashing on it. It was still cool. I still enjoyed it, but it just didn't blow my socks off. That's all. But it's great if you did. All right. My Mr. Hero 17 writes, Fantastic Four is back. Hashtag let's do it right this time. Here's hoping. Here's hoping. Fourth time's a charm. Hopefully, we'll see if Marvel can be the ones to crack the code on this thing. Patrizia T writes, I just watched the A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood trailer and cried my eyes out. Did you guys get a chance to watch it? We did. We talked about it earlier on the show today, actually. I believe it was our first topic that we talked about on the John Campea Show earlier today. Love the trailer. Just loved it. Again, like Rob said, if it's making us this emotional with the trailer, what the hell is this movie going to do to us for 2 hours? It's hard to imagine, but yeah, I absolutely do. Again, who knows if the movie's going to be good or not? I'm thinking it's going to be good. It might be bad, but I'm telling you, that trailer got me. Oh, it's when the guy says, you love broken people like me. Oh my God. Oh, so true. Suthius writes, does MCU Blade have to have vampires? Mandatory? That's a good question. I don't think it's mandatory, but vampires are so interwoven with the whole mythology of Blade. You're going to have to come up with some really good thing to not have vampires in. I don't believe it's 100% mandatory. You could do a great Blade movie and have him fighting something else. You can. But it's so interwoven with the mythology of Blade. That's going to be a tall order. So I would say it behooves them to do it with vampires. But mandatory? No, not mandatory. But it seems like it would be a good idea. All right, E. Roach writes, Wesley Snipes as Wakandan Kraven the Hunter? I don't think so. I don't think there's a place for a lead role in the MCU with Wesley Snipes. On top of all that, I don't know if a lot of directors will want to work with him. I mean, there's stories about how he physically attacked David Goyer. And threatened and attacked David Goyer on the set of Blade 3. I mean, and that he's not the easiest guy to work with, and he comes along with a lot of baggage. And look, I'm a fan of Wesley Snipes, but do I think Kevin Feige is going to invite that into his house? I don't think so. So I'm going to guess no. Anything's possible. Anything is possible in the MCU, but I'm going to guess no. Hoser Miaz writes, what stories do you guys want to see told in What If? Oh, I don't care. I really don't care. Whatever they want to do, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do. Again, I don't generally like any of the Marvel or DC animated stuff, but this What If series, that's got my attention because there's some really fun little things you can do that are inconsequential to the MCU. That could be fun. So anything they want to do, man, is totally good with me. All right, Warrington Trainspotter 2778 writes, Kevin Feige and the behind the team, you probably mean the behind the scenes team, staff, not the actors, have earned everyone's respect, as when Kevin Feige announced his plan for the MCU, everyone laughed, but look who is laughing now. I didn't hear anybody laughing at Kevin Feige. And I remember being around when that whole stuff was coming together. I don't remember anybody laughing at him. I really don't. But I agree with you. Too much credit. Look, as much as I love Chris Evans as Captain America, and as much as I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, as much as I love Chris Hemsworth as Thor, the actors in the MCU get too much credit. And I don't think as much credit as we give Kevin Feige and his producing team and all that kind of stuff, as much as they do get a lot of credit, I don't think they get enough. They are the reason. I mean, they could have casted other actors and still been this successful. And I think you're deluding yourself if you don't think so. If anybody other than Chris Evans had been Thor, it wouldn't have been good or wouldn't have been successful. Yeah, it still would have. Because it still would have been the same character, with the same directors, with the same dialogue being written, the same stories. It would have still worked. And maybe even worked better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing on the job that Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, I love these guys. I love them. I'm so happy they are the characters that they are. I totally am. They bring me a lot of joy. But I think we as film fans often give a little too much credit to the performers as opposed to the people behind the scenes, the people who write the movies, the people who direct the movies, the people who produce the movies. They're the ones who really put these movies together. And Kevin Feige, like, as much credit as people give him, he deserves it all. I mean, he really is the guy who made this whole thing go. And I think you raise a really good point, Warrington. All right. Warrington follows up with, should Endgame be rated R? Or sorry, yeah, I assume you mean rated R. Shouldn't Endgame be rated R? As it was a dark movie, I'm Thanos has his head. Let me try this again. Shouldn't Endgame be rated as it was a dark movie? I'm Thanos has his head chopped off and his arm. I think what you're saying is, shouldn't Endgame be rated R as it was a dark movie and Thanos has his head chopped off and his arm? I think that just goes to prove a point that I make all the time. With the MPAA, you can get away with a lot of dark stuff and a lot of violence when it comes to aliens, monsters, or robots. Aliens, monsters, and robots, you can do unspeakable violence to. Unspeakable violence to. And still get away with a PG-13 rating. Remember, a lot of very edgy, darker movies have gotten PG-13 ratings. And look, I remember, which X-Men movie was it? I think it was X-Men 2. Like, I think it was X-Men 2, when the first time that military unit breaks into the mansion and Wolverine is there kind of watching the kids, and he straight up murders a lot of those guys. Straight up murders a lot of guys. And they weren't aliens, monsters, or robots. He straight up murders those fools. PG-13. Avengers Endgame. Thanos literally got decapitated. PG-13. You can get away with an awful lot of stuff, and that's why I believe, look, I still think they should put Blade as an R-rated film in Fox and do it R-rated. By having him in the MCU, they're going to make him PG-13, but it can still very much work because Blade can do a lot of nasty things to vampires and still get a PG-13. I honestly, I think it's a total fantasy land. That I think you got to be living in a total fantasy land to ever even think for a minute that Bob Iger is going to let there be an R-rated movie in his MCU. Because Bob Iger thinks on a higher plane than the rest of us do. He's not thinking movie to movie. He's thinking, I reach out to families and all that kind of stuff to come into the MCU. The MCU is a place that you can bring your family. That's what the MCU is. He reaches out to his audience, to his customers, to his patrons, and says the MCU is adventure, excitement, depth even now, exciting time of the movies for your family. And that's a consistent message. He's not going to drop it. If he was going to allow, here's the thing. If he was going to allow R-rated stuff into the MCU, he would have just put Deadpool in the MCU. There, simple, done. If he was going to allow R-rated movies in his MCU, he would have just let Deadpool be in there. But he didn't. He said, Deadpool's got to stay over there. We can do R-rated films, but if we're doing R-rated films, Bob Iger has said, we got to label it and brand it differently and have it elsewhere. By having Blade in the MCU, I am telling you, he is going to make it PG-13. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. You know, Rob is making this case, and I'm saying, Rob, you're not saying why Bob Iger would. You're saying why you're hoping he will, and I'm with you. I'm with you. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not. Bob Iger has stated it. It's clear, and I think you got to be living in some sort of fantasy land. And who knows, maybe I'm way off on this. It's been known to happen. But I honestly, I think you got to be living in some alternate reality, mixed up timeline fantasy land to think that Bob Iger is going to let R-rated things in his MCU that he cultivates with his audience, saying this MCU, if there's an MCU movie, it's good for you to bring your family to it. He ain't going to change that. There's no way Bob Iger on his watch is going to let that happen. And by the way, I think Kevin Feige would be too intelligent to let that happen either. So anyway, well, but we'll see. We'll see. But like you're pointing out, Warrington, you can get away with a lot in PG-13 if it's aliens, monsters, or robots. You can get away with a lot of violence, including a giant purple villain. Ninja Greg writes, hey, John, Rob, and Chris. Endgame, enjoy your reign at number 1. The Rise of Skywalker is just around the corner. A great time to be a film fan. It is a great time to be a film fan. I don't see, no, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is not going to beat Avengers Endgame. I don't even think it's going to join the $2 billion club. It's going to be a big, massive hit. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is going to be a big, massive hit. It's going to join the $1 billion club. It's going to make tons of money, and everybody's going to be happy. But I don't even think it's joining the $2 billion club, let alone $2.7 billion. I just don't think there's any evidence to suggest that that's even a remote possibility. There's no, I just don't think, I mean, don't get, you know me, I'm a Star Wars guy, man. I'm a major Star Wars guy. I would love it if that would happen, but I don't see there being any reality that it hits 2.7 billion. I just don't see that happening. Hope you're right, though. Hope you're right. Epic Berserker writes, Lion King was perfect. 10 out of 10. Seth Rogen was perfect. I thought Seth Rogen was perfect as Pumbaa. I wouldn't give Lion King a 10 out of 10, but I desperately adore that movie. I loved it. I'm glad you did too, Epic Berserker. All right, Epic Berserker also follows up and writes, Phase 4 slate to me was lackluster. Bringing back Natalie Portman, disappointing. And why is half the slate Disney Plus? That's not a real movie slate. But remember, Disney Plus is now true MCU, not like the way Netflix was or that crappy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. It's the Disney Plus stuff is true MCU. And remember, Disney Plus is not traditional television. These are basically movies broken into 4, 5, and 6 parts. That's what it is. These aren't like, this isn't a tradition. This is season 1 of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Come back next year for season 2, and then the year after that for season 3. This isn't that. This is really different from anything else we've had before. So it really is very much a true slate. It's just that think of The Falcon and Winter Soldier as a really long 6-hour movie, because that's how they're treating them. They're treating them as 4-part, 5-part, and 6-part movie events, except they're being broadcast on Disney Plus, and instead of in a movie theater. And moving forward, that's where the MCU is going to live. It's going to live in the theaters and on Disney Plus, because they're going to make money in the movie theater and they're going to make money off subscribers to Disney Plus. And you just can't think of it in terms of traditional television. This isn't really TV. It really is a movie event, but on Disney Plus. So that's how they're approaching it. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Will it work? Well, that we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But I think there's good reason to be optimistic at this point, but we will wait and see, Epic Berserker. All right, QS Hicks writes, remember Buffy and Angel were PG-13 vampire? Yes, and there was a lot of violence in Buffy and Angel because they're being done against monsters, aliens, and robots. If you do your violence against those things, you're cool to be on TV and you're cool to get a PG-13 rating. I know that sounds a little bit weird and out of place, but it's true. I mean, that's really how that stuff works. Zazu Yu writes, is Data in Star Trek Picard de-aged? I don't think he's de-aged. You don't have to de-age him. Data was always, like Brent Spinner, who plays Data. You never really saw Brent Spinner, except for when he played the old professor. But when he was Data, you never saw him. You saw him in his full makeup, right? So whether Brent Spinner is 45 years old or 65 years old, all you gotta do is just put on the Data makeup and he looks like Data again. So there isn't even any de-aging to do. That's the beautiful thing about the Data outfit, is there's no de-aging they have to do. Just put on the makeup and the contacts and do the thing with his hair and boom, there he goes. He looks exactly the same. So no de-aging necessary, I wouldn't think. QS Hicks writes, geeks speculate with me. Strange and Wanda accidentally release vampires into the MCU. Wanda is hallucinating her time with Vision, since that's no. They're never going to do it was all just a dream with WandaVision. Oh my God, you want to turn your fans on you super fast? That will turn the MCU fans against them. That would be a terrible thing to do. They are not going to do that. No, I don't see Doctor Strange and Wanda unleashing vampires. I don't think they're going to do that. They're just going to say, like, almost every other vampire movie, vampires are real, but just nobody knows about them, all that kind of stuff. So no, I appreciate the imagination, QS, I do, brother, but I don't see either of those things being a really valid possibility. Rob J00 writes, "Hey John, have you seen the Watchmen TV trailer?" I did. I'm not thrilled with it, but I'm curious. I'm curious about it. I mean, I've been curious about the show since they announced it. I don't know that the trailer didn't get me hyped, but I thought it was an interesting trailer. We'll see how that goes. Miguel Valadez writes, "How much do you think can Avatar make if re-released? If they do it around a significant anniversary and they tie it in with, remember guys, in just a year Avatar 2's coming in, and they do a little bit of promotion on it, I think it can make 15 million. I think it could make probably a good 15, maybe even 20 million. Don't get me wrong, it wouldn't make $100 million or anything like that, but 15, 20 million, yeah, I could see it doing that if they decided to market it a certain way. We'd have to wait and see. Sid Vicious writes, "Should fans of directors be allowed to review their movies for websites? In reviews of Tarantino's movies, I notice a lot of them are making excuses." That's your opinion, Sid. Like, just because they like something that you don't doesn't mean they're making excuses. That's something you got to get rid of. I mean, look, so what are you supposed to do? Oh, if you like that person, you're not allowed to review their movies? That's ridiculous. I love Star Wars, but I can review Clone Wars and say I don't like Clone Wars. I love Star Wars, but I can watch prequels and go, I don't like the prequels. Just because you like something doesn't mean you're not objective and you can't give an honest opinion about something. I really like Star Wars Rebels, but guess what? There's a bunch of their episodes I thought were crap. And I did review shows of them, and I said, this episode was crap. You can be a fan of something and still be objective about it. So no, that's ridiculous. I think that's a ridiculous idea that if you're a fan of a director, you're not allowed to review them. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I mean, just look at a bunch of Game of Thrones fans. I mean, a bunch of Game of Thrones fans love season 8, but guess what? There are a bunch of Game of Thrones fans that just because they're Game of Thrones fans, does that mean they're not capable of giving their honest opinion? A lot of people hated season 8, even though they're Game of Thrones fans. I don't see why you should suspect that, film critics can't do the same thing. Of course they can, and of course they do. So yeah, yes, people who are fans of Tarantino are completely capable of reviewing Tarantino's films. And just FYI, just because they're saying they like something when you didn't doesn't mean they're making excuses. All right, just be clear about that, Sid. Just be careful about that. Quinn Allfather 69 writes, "My wife Phaedra and I love your work." Thank you so much, man. Brett WB writes, "Not sure if you talked about this, but thoughts on the new trailer for It 2. I loved it. I thought it was the best trailer from all of last week." Oh, it was a great trailer. It was a great trailer. Giving us a lot more picture of the Losers Club coming back and like Pennyworth and a lot of different stuff. It was a wonderful trailer. I don't know if it's the best trailer I've seen in the last couple of weeks, but it was definitely solid. I'm very excited for It Chapter 2. The trailer hit all the right notes. And again, the purpose of a trailer is to take your enthusiasm level wherever it is and kick it up a couple of notches. And I was already excited for It Chapter 2. This trailer made me even more excited. So I'm totally with you, Brett. I thought it was great. All right. Shama writes, "Tom Hanks is in What If cast, so we'll get 3 alt Lokis." Oh, you're Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, but remember, no, the What If stuff isn't even remotely tied to the MCU. It's a totally separate thing outside of the MCU. It's a totally different imaginary thing, so I wouldn't read anything into that. Sid Vicious writes, "Do you want box office draw movie star system? Do you want box office draw movie star system return?" I'm trying here, Sid. Do you want box office draw movie star system return? I don't know what it is you're asking. What system? There is no system called box office draw movie star. I'm not quite sure. Sorry about that, man, but I'm really not. I'm not following what it is you're trying to say here. The bearded one writes, "Hello, John. Great show today. Thank you so much. I had a great time on the show today. It was great. I love it, especially when me and Rob can get into some debate. I always love that stuff. But Rob's a great guy to have these discussions with." The bearded one then writes, "I can't wait to see The Witcher with Henry Cavill." Me too. Again, I didn't think the trailer was all that great. I thought it was okay. Nothing wrong with the trailer, but it seems smaller than what I was expecting. And it seemed lower production budget than I was expecting. Again, I enjoyed it. It was nice, but it did not blow me away. And we'll talk more about that, I think, on tomorrow's show. Shama Shama writes, Larry's song in Doom Patrol is the most touching comic book movie scene. It's a great scene. When they're in the vanishing town and they're in the club and they're doing karaoke, that was a great scene. I loved it. I don't know if it's one of the best comic book movie scenes ever, and it's a show, not a movie, but still, but it was a very, very good scene and one of the wackiest episodes ever. I mean, and there's a lot of wacky stuff about that, about Doom Patrol, man. Warrington Trainspotter 2778 writes, Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse, could that be Marvel's why? Probably meant way of bringing back Tony Stark. Oh, they don't need an excuse. They can do anything they want to bring him back. I don't think they're going to bring him back that fast. I think they're probably going to wait 3, maybe even 4, maybe even 5 years. He'll come back at some point, but they don't need an excuse. I mean, they can just do anything they want to bring Tony Stark back. The DJT Nice NC writes, Endgame beating Avatar is super legit. Avatar released at Christmas against nothing. Oh, that's just an excuse, man. Endgame released against the entire summer movie slate, but they also released in a time when more people go to the movies. Look, this whole thing about, it's all just excuses. Don't give me this excuse of, but Avatar had a re-release. Don't give me this excuse of, oh, but Avatar released in the Christmas season. Don't give me that. Don't give me any of that. Just like I tell people who try to defend Avatar, oh, but Avatar with inflation is bigger. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. It's bottom line is bottom line. And look, again, the DJ T-Nice NC, if you want to play that game, then, you know, the Avatar people, as they are talking about, they can just come back at you and throw the inflation thing in your face, because Avatar is still well ahead of Endgame if you bring inflation into it, if you want to play that game. And I'm saying nobody should play that game. Nobody should play it. But that's what I'm saying is dangerous to get into that game. And the Avatar people can go, hey, well, look, Avatar is actually a real movie. Avatar is a real single movie. Endgame isn't. Endgame, if Endgame didn't have the 21 films before it and the 11 years build up and all that kind of stuff, and if you just released Endgame as a standalone movie without all of the MCU behind it, it doesn't make $2.7 billion. It doesn't even get anywhere close to that. Endgame was a result of a 21 movie over 11 years build up with about 30 of Hollywood's biggest movie stars and blah, 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 and all coalescing into that one thing. And I made the point to Rob too, Endgame, it's not even that Endgame took over the number one spot, it's that the MCU took over the number one spot. But again, you shouldn't play that game. You know, if you want it, and that's the tangled web you weave, man, when you get into these excuses about inflation, excuses about Christmas relief, excuses about anything else re-release. When you get into this excuse game, everybody's going to have a lot of ammunition on both sides to throw at you, including the very valid observation that some Avatar fans may say. It's like, well, the Endgame isn't even truly a standalone movie. Avatar, all by itself, with no 20-film cinematic universe behind it, without a 10-year-long build-up to it, blah, blah. It was just a single movie released into theaters, and on its own, it made $2.7+ billion. Endgame, they can say, it couldn't do it without 21 films and 10 years and 30+ big movie stars and all that kind of stuff. That's what it took for it to do that. And again, I don't think anybody should play that game. You know, put away the 21 film argument, put away the inflation argument, put away the Christmas argument, put away the re-release argument. None of it matters and nobody cares. The bottom line is, Endgame is the number one all-time film of all time. Number one all-time film of all time. Number one box office film of all time. Bottom line. Bottom line. That's it. I don't want to hear about inflation. I don't want to hear about re-releases. I don't want to hear about Christmas release. I don't want to hear about 21 film buildup. If y'all want to play that game, both sides have unlimited ammunition and can just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The bottom line is it broke the record. That's it. And that's all that matters. And when Disney re-releases Avatar and Avatar becomes the number one film again, I don't want to hear that excuse either. The bottom line then will be Avatar is once again the number one. So right now, I don't want to hear excuses about why Avengers or Endgame is the number one film. I don't want to hear the excuses. And then when Avatar becomes the number one film again, I don't want to hear excuses then either. And when something else comes along, takes over the number one film, I don't want to hear the excuses. Every time a record gets broken, you can sit down and play the excuse game. And everybody has ammunition they can fire at each other. So don't get into playing that game. Don't get into playing that game. Well, Endgame is really legit because this. No. Well, Avatar should really be the number one film. Like, no. Bottom line. Endgame passed Avatar. It's the number one box office film of all time. Period. End of sentence. Get out of here with the rest of your excuses for Endgame. Get out of here with the rest of your excuses for Avatar. Bottom line, that's what it is. And when Avatar passes it, that'll be it. And then when something else passes that, that'll be it. But get out of here with this excuse game. Just don't get into the excuse game because everybody's got excuses they can throw around. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. All right, Nerds of Porn writes, Jon Jones accused of assault again on... I know. This dude's a freaking idiot. He's a massively talented fighter, but Jon Jones is a straight-up idiot. I'm sorry if you're a fan of his and everything. The dude's a moron. Hit and run, pregnant women, cocaine, performance-enhancing drugs, assaulting a waitress in a strip club. The dude is a straight-up... it's unbelievable. But again, UFC will do nothing. UFC won't do a thing. They have no standard of conduct. They don't have any professional standards. They don't care. Whatever. It'll be just like the Conor McGregor thing again. Oh, you physically attacked and hospitalized people who work for our company, throwing metal skiffs through a bus window, hospitalizing people, making people miss fights, blah, blah, blah. Embarrass the company. Yeah, not even a suspension. No suspension from the UFC for Conor McGregor. Now, Jon Jones has been suspended before. At least there's that. But, I mean, at some point, you got to go, you know what? This dude is just bad, not just for the company. This dude is bad for the sport. And it's unfortunate because he's a ludicrously talented fighter. Ludicrously talented fighter. But he's just bad for the sport. He's an embarrassment to the sport. And at some point, you got to say that matters. Now, I'm not saying you need to have the morality police following everybody around, but guys, come on. Look at the rap sheet on Jon Jones at this point and all the idiotic things he's done. And he admits himself, he keeps getting in his own way. And now this latest thing, in a strip club, assaulting a waitress. Come on, enough's enough. Enough's enough. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend that I'm the police and I've got the full detailed reports on everything that actually happened. I wasn't there. So maybe we'll find out tomorrow that this thing was all just a big misunderstanding and fine. But still, Jon Jones has done enough already that he should be on very, very thin ice with the UFC. And if he screws up again to embarrass the sport, to embarrass the company, to embarrass the art, get rid of him, or at least suspend him again for another year. Strip him of his belt again and get rid of him until he figures it out and learns it. Anyway, I can go on about that. Anyway, final question today comes to us from Adam Douglas, who writes, The Rock is 47. By the time Black Adam appears, he'll be 50. Jason Statham is 51. He's still a badass. Rest assured, Mahershala Ali at 45 is going to be okay. No, look, that's what I was saying. Ben Affleck started up as Batman at whatever, and granted he only lasted a couple movies, but still. I think at 45, starting a new franchise, with a role as physically demanding as a Blade you would assume role is going to be, 45, I believe, is getting close to the upper limit of where you can start. 45, 46, 47, 48, whatever. That's getting near the upper limit of where you can start this. And I think he's okay in there. I think it's totally legit for people to raise an eyebrow, but I think he's still within that acceptable age range. I still think he's within that acceptable age range to start. But whether or not that's true, we will have to find out. But I think it's going to be okay. So I'm with you on that, Adam. I think that's going to be okay. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment, or this particular installment, I should say, of the companion videos. Guys, thank you so much for being here and sending in all those questions, not just because you gave us great fun stuff to talk about, but also because you supported the channel along the way. And I, Robert, Chris, Aaron, Jonathan, Ray, we all thank you very much for supporting the channel on that level. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.